My name's Jeanette and I'm a financial coach. I help professionals ditch debt without the overwhelm and build wealth without the stress. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the topics that comes up quite often. We're going to be talking about the 4 different ways to aggressively pay off debt. So let's get started. What we're going to be covering today are the 4 different methods. Those include method number 1, the snowball, method number 2, the avalanche, method number 3, the lump sum, method number 4, the pissed off method, and then at the very end we'll talk about which one you should pick. There's 2 terms I want to make sure that we are on the same page about for this video. Both these phrases can sometimes, they don't always have the same, depending on who you talk to, they don't always have the same meaning. I just want to make sure that you and I are on the same page though. So the first one is consumer debt. That is everything you owe besides your mortgage. So that can include credit cards, auto loans, student loans, personal loans, and that includes ones that you owe to family members as well. The second word that I want to make sure, second phrase I want to make sure we understand and we're on the same page is emergency fund. That is money that you set aside only for true emergencies. It stops you from reaching for a credit card when life happens because you're grabbing cash instead. Traditionally, you'll hear a lot of financial people say like you should have at least $1,000 saved. But I'm gonna be really honest, when I was aggressively paying off debt, I had more like $3,000 sitting in an emergency fund. So if you need a little bit more to sleep better at night, to me, that is totally fine. So those are the 2 words, consumer debt and emergency fund. Okay, and throughout this video, I'm going to be dropping a few truth bombs. The first one is actually about emergency funds. Building your emergency fund is the important first step. Without it, I've seen too many people fall right back into debt the moment an unexpected expense pops up. So I've seen way too many people that they totally skip the step of building the emergency fund first. And what happens is that something comes up and they need to pay for something, and instead of just grabbing cash from their emergency fund, unfortunately they're taking a credit card and they're putting more debt on it. So it just kind of, they don't feel like they can get ahead because they're always just like building up more debt from emergency things. So before you consider starting any of these debt payoff methods, I want you to make sure that you have at least $1,000 in an emergency fund. Okay, so this is the star of our show. This is Katie. She is based off of a current client of mine. She is a really amazing person. She's a professional. She went to college. She is really involved in her community. She's just a lovely, lovely person. However, her financial situation when we first started working together was kind of a disaster. She didn't know how much money she owed. She wasn't even really sure how much she owed or like who she owed money to. So the first thing that we did when we started working together is we sat down and we listed out all of the different people or the companies that she owed money to, and then also the interest. So once we sat down, we figured out all those things, we added it all up together, and it ended up being $164,000 of consumer debt. So that did not include her mortgage. That was just consumer debt that she owed. When she saw this number, her face fell. Like, it was just pretty devastating. She knew it was a lot, but she didn't know it was that much. So when we first started working together, we, when she had an emergency fund, because that's the most important thing, right? When she had an emergency fund put together, we next worked on which debt payoff that she wanted to do. So let's go over that and talk about each one. So, before we get to that though, Katie's debts. So let's take a peek at them. So she had some student loans that were at $27,800 at 6%. She had a HELOC that she took out for $55,000 at 10%. She had a Home Depot card. She renovated part of her house, and that was about $8,000. And then she had 29% interest on that. She had an Amazon card for $20,000. She racked up quite a bit on Amazon for $26,000. Her mom loaned her money years ago, about $700, and she just never got around to paying her mom back. Her mom did not expect her daughter to do any interest, so Katie had 0% interest on that. Kate had a newer Subaru, about $35,000. That's what she still owed. She'd still paid some on it. And then it was about 9%. She had a Nordstrom card had about $2,000 balance on it for 32%. She also had a Pottery Barn card. She did she purchased some things for her home office, and it ended up being about $15,000, and that was at 27%. And the last one, she had an Alaska Airlines card for $500 and about 27%. So altogether, when we added up all of these debts, it added up to that $164,000. So the next thing that I talked about with Katie, and which I'm going to talk about with you too, is the different methods for aggressively paying off debt. So the first one is method number one. It's the snowball. I'm a little partial to this one because this is the one that I used when I was paying off debt. My husband and I also had 6 figures of debt that we paid off years ago. So like I said, I'm a little partial to this one. How the snowball method works: you list debts from smallest balance to largest. You completely ignore the interest rates for this method. You make minimum payments on everything every month. You throw every extra dollar at that smallest debt. And then when that smallest debt is gone, you roll that payment into the next one. And then you repeat this pattern until you're debt free. So if we were to look at Katie's situation, this is how, if she were to use the snowball method, this is what she would use. So she would have her Alaska Airlines card first. Remember, it was only $500. That loan she owed her mom, it was $700. A Nordstrom card was $2,000. Home Depot card was $8,000. And you can see that we listed all the rest of them from lowest to highest. So this is the order that she would do her snowball method in. One of the reasons why it's my favorite is because you get quick wins right out of the gate. So after she'd have her emergency fund done, she could probably pay off her Alaska Airlines card probably in the first month, and all of a sudden, boom, that one's gone. That feels really good. And then probably the next month, she could probably pay back her mom. Boom, that's another one that's gone. After a couple months, she could probably pay off that Nordstrom card. So what I love about the snowball method is that it makes you have quick wins right out of the gate. You get motivated, and it just has a really good feeling too. Okay, some truth bombs. Here we go. Okay, so the thing with the snowball method, so yes, you'll pay more interest over time, but a plan you actually stick to will always be a perfect plan you abandon. So we'll talk about another method that focuses more on like interest rates, and honestly, you will pay more on the snowball method, and that's just how it is. It is way better to have a plan that you stick with as opposed to having a plan that you abandon after a couple months because you're frustrated. So keep that in mind as talking about some of these other methods. Let's move on. The next one is the avalanche method. Now, this one is, I will say, this one is the mathematically correct one. And here's why. So when you set this up, you list the debts from highest interest rate to lowest. So you were focusing on the interest rates for the avalanche method. You make minimum payments on everything. You attack the highest interest rate debt first with every extra dollar. Then when that's gone, you roll that payment into the next one, and you repeat this pattern until you are debt free. So if Katie's example, remember, we're focusing on interest rates for this one. So that Nordstrom card was like 32%. So we put that one at the top. That's the first one we would attack. The Home Depot card, that was 29%. We would do that one next. The Alaska Airlines, that's 27%. So that one's next. And you can see they go down from there. So that would be how Katie would set it up. I am going to throw the numbers back in, the actual, like the balance when we first started working together. The thing with the avalanche order is that you don't get quick wins right out of the first couple months. Like you can see the Nordstrom card has $2,000. That would probably take a couple months. And then Home Depot has $8,000. So this, yes, you paid off and you save money over time because you're going with the highest interest rate and you're getting rid of the ones with the highest interest rate. However, the tough thing about it is that people get really discouraged. That is what I've found with the avalanche order. So, and then when we go down a little bit farther for 4 and 5, the Pottery Barn and the Amazon, that's $15,000 and $20,000. Like that is going to take a while to pay off. So, I love seeing people make quick wins. Most people like that feeling of quick wins. So this is the one downfall of the avalanche order, in my opinion. So the truth bomb, money is not just mathematical, it's emotional. a method that feels impossible to stick with will cost you more than at any interest rate. So if you start a method and you get frustrated with it and then you stop and you wait 4 years to try something else, you've lost a lot of money in that time. So just keep in mind, money is emotional. It's not just math. Okay, the next method is method number 3. It is the lump sum. This is when you come into money. So typically with lump sum, you receive a windfall. So that can be an inheritance. So when someone dies and then you receive a money or property or something. It could be a bonus from work, or it could be the proceeds from selling something. So all of a sudden you just get $100,000, $200,000. The nice thing is you can use that money and just wipe out all your debt at once. So you went from, like Katie, she went from $164,000. She could be within a month, right? She could be just totally gone. Now, before you pay anything off, I would highly, highly, highly recommend talking to both a CPA and a financial advisor first. There are some real tax implications with receiving huge amounts of money. So just make sure that you are making a wise choice with how you're spending this money. I worked with a couple a while back, lovely, lovely couple, but they didn't know. They just didn't know. And they spent all of their inheritance, and then come tax time, they all of a sudden owed Uncle Sam $20,000, and they didn't have $20,000 extra to pay Uncle Sam. So after tax season, they still owed a lot of money to the federal government. So please make sure if you ever come into this situation where you have a bunch of money, that you talk to professionals first before you get serious about doing anything like that. And then number 2, the other thing that I really stress is you must address spending habits, or you'll likely end up back in debt. Other people I've worked with, they will spend, they'll wipe out their debt. They feel really good about it, and then they have not identified their spending habits, and so then unfortunately they end up back in debt within 3 or 4 years, and they're right back to where they started. So lump sum, awesome, because it wipes everything out right away. The 2 things though, taxes, and then also your spending habits, huge thing with that. And like we just talked about, if you haven't changed the habits you created, the debt, you will most likely be back in debt within a few months or couple years. The lump sum clears the balance sheet, but it does not clear your mindset. So make sure that you are in a good space before you start going crazy and paying off a bunch of stuff. Okay, last one. Method number 4, the pissed off method. This is my second favorite and probably the most underrated. What you do is you get to list the debts off that irritate you the most. This is like almost like so much fun, because you pay off the most emotionally charged debt first, and then you make the rules. You get to make the list and whatever fires you up. Often I see people that will they'll start with this and then they'll combine the snowball method at the end for a really strong finish. So Katie, if she were to do this, she was really irritated with holiday dinners being so awkward with her mom. So she paid off her mom first, right out of the gate. The next thing she decided to, or if she was to do this, she would do the Home Depot card, because she was just tired of getting the statement. And then student loans, same thing, was really tired of getting those student loan statements. So she would pay off the student loans next. And then number 4, then she would just list things snowball. So whatever the next smallest balance was, and then down to the highest. So truth bomb about the pissed off method. So money is emotional. Money is emotion, identity, and relationships. Never having to have an awkward money conversation with your mom at Christmas. For some people, that motivation is more powerful than any interest rate calculation. So, yeah, money's emotional. It's not just a bunch of math or spreadsheets. So sometimes it's best to pick a method that matches your emotion, because that will light you up way more than trying to follow a spreadsheet. So which method should you pick? So all 4 methods work. They truly do work. The only one that fails is the one that you cannot maintain. So snowball, it's great if you need early wins to stay motivated. Avalanche, it's great if you're more analytical and driven by numbers. Lump sum, only after you've done your inner work on spending, then also talking to professionals about your taxes. And then pissed off, it's great if emotion is your fuel, and that is a very valid fuel. So those are those 4 methods, and kind of like the ones that they mix with the right people. And then, yeah, pick one that you'll actually stick with. Honestly, whatever you'll stick with, like pick that one. And honestly, if one doesn't work, then just try another one. Like it's okay to start over. It's totally okay to do that. Okay, so our girl Katie, let's talk about Katie. So she's been working really hard. She has paid off so much debt. I am so proud of her. She's paid off $100,000 already. She is doing wonderful work. I'm just thrilled with her. So yeah, she's paid off 6 figures. And what she chose to do is she started with the pissed off, and then she added the snowball at the end, and she is not stopping. She is just like going all in. It's really awesome to see her making progress. Okay, so this debt-free life is totally available to you. Imagine no payments, no statements, no creditors. You own everything and you owe nobody. So choose a debt payoff that works for you and start attacking your debt. Your future self will thank you so much if you do that. And again, my name is Jeanette and I'm a financial coach. Please subscribe, and I'll be dropping more and more regular content in the next several weeks and months. And also drop a comment. So tell me, which method are you most drawn to? Are you more drawn to the snowball, the avalanche, the lump sum, or the pissed off? Thank you for watching, and be looking for more videos soon.